this is the conversation on planning for the Continental Summit on higher education and how the diaspora needs to be represented in that summit with regard to the priorities of the summit. How can the African academic diaspora be deployed as part and parcel of the higher education agenda that will be discussed. So some of these ideas that we hear in this session might be useful in feeding into that other conversation. Without talking too much, let me first of all thank the representatives who are here of the Carnegie Corporation of New York. Andrea is here, Mirella is here, so if they can just wave, they're representing the Carnegie Corporation. And I also want to introduce Deborah, who is really, really the force behind this program. Deborah? I'm sure they all know Deborah on this side of the podium. And Kim Fords, who is the coordinator for the program. I will ask each of the speakers to talk for about 10 minutes. And if you can very briefly introduce yourselves, and then we hear about your experiences. We sent them in advance a series of questions, which we wanted them to address as a way of us guiding the conversation so we can hear some pertinent information as to their experiences. We're going to start with Nkechi.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. The first thing I want to say is thank you first to all the key institutions for this opportunity, and a very special thank you to my host institution, Federal University of Technology at Akure Center for Gender in Science and Technology, for the opportunity to collaborate with them and bring, get an incubation site for some of the things I have been working on for the past decade, which have been difficult to bring to the forefront because of its interdisciplinary nature and the fact that African indigenous mathematical knowledge is silent in the curriculum. That being said, I need to introduce myself really well because I noticed that on the booklet I was listed as independent. And I am not independent because my institution has put some dollars in making sure that I could be here today. So I need to make sure that they are well known as me being a representative of the City University of New York, their Borough of Manhattan Community College campus. I've been there since 1995. I'm an ethno-mathematician, also trained in curriculum and instruction, and the project I went to collaborate with FUTA on is in co-curricular research and teaching research. And it deals with bringing in the African cultural milieu to bear in teaching mathematics, and also bringing in the work of women's lives, women who have succeeded, women who are rural women, bear into the curriculum so that they can be made visible, since women are about 1% of the PhDs, even though we're 51% of the global population. So that's basically my project. It was about capacity building and developing curriculum using things like this, which are the work of women. Something like this can be used in a geometry class. It can be used in a calculus class to teach series and sequences and so on. This in particular I got right here, so I tossed aside my own samples that I brought because I felt it would be nice to use something that I got right here, but can also help students learn about pi, which is the relationship of the circle circumference to its diameter. So I will go with the script that I was given. Basically, how did I hear about the program? I didn't hear about it from FUTA, even though they had a Center for Gender and Studies science and technology. There was a crucial party that was the go-between, and that is Dr. Stella Williams, who is a professor emeritus of the Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. She works as a consultant with the NIWAD program at FUTA. How did the meeting of minds come along with Dr. Stella in the middle to bring both institutions or parties together? It started out at the conference, the UN Conference for the Status of Women. There was an alternative plenary on the African woman in STEM, and I was one of the speakers. Dr. Williams was another speaker, and from my talk about what I do in my mathematics classroom here at CUNY and what she was doing as a consultant with NIWAD, she made the connection and with the people at FUTA, and they found out a little bit more about what I was doing and how it bears on some of the things that they do at the center in bringing women in science to make them visible, to illustrate their work, to mentor them into leadership. That's how the connection got made. Now, because I had never met the folks at FUTA, it now became very important that a logistical planning meeting take place. And these are some of the issues that I would like the Carnegie Foundation to take into consideration for fellows that are being matched or for fellows that have never worked with the institution that they are going into. So I had to take the risk of a planning visit and incur the financial expense for that because I really needed the work I was doing to have an incubation site in Africa. And I think that that was a very important part of the success of what we were able to accomplish while I was there, because we did accomplish a lot. My host institution has a top-down management level, like with I think many in Africa. So everything has to go through the Vice Chancellor's office, and that sort of had its delays in terms of putting things in place in the project. There was sharing of equipment because African universities may not have as much resources as we have here on this side of the globe, and that has delays when you have to share. But more critical is the issue of no release time or institutional funding for those who would like on that end to participate in a project that's one of curricular development. They really have to have an interest. That has to be something they are already doing. And if you're bringing in something that's new that they've probably not thought of, but that could also empower them, then release time or some stipends become very important. And I know that even from my own institution. My work started out through the fact that CUNY had a writing intensive graduation requirement for its students, and so that every department had to develop writing intensive courses, and so I now brought into bear what I was doing into the writing intensive courses I had developed, and they put money for training and money for helping us, to support us to do this work. So it is really important, especially when faculties have so many responsibilities that they need to address. So how was I able to inspire, even though there wasn't release time? Like I said, the planning visit where I went to introduce myself to the key principal administrators and also to people, to the departments that the work would impact. I had workshops right there at the planning visit to show what it is I was doing with regard to culture and with regard to women's life, and also to show the relationship with regard to the local community, because some of these things had to do with the Yoruba culture, security codes. It had to do with architecture in the Oba's palace. It had to do with artifacts that are local. It had to do with plants, how you can use plants in the local community to teach about mathematics. So that planning visit was very, very important for participants who had not worked with the institution before. And I would say even if they know about your work, if you've never worked with the institution before, it is important in terms of putting in place the elements that are key. So basically, I can clearly say that when I left there, which I'm hoping to go back, get a sabbatical, if I can get one for next academic year, to go back and continue work on this project, because I see it as very important way of teaching mathematics in Africa. And if we can make that bridge, then students will maybe begin to do much better in mathematics. The mathematics statistics of WAEC in Nigeria show very dismal performance in mathematics. So basically, how can you, and this now even bridges the gap of equity between poor and well, between schools that are poor and schools that are rich. Because if you bring something that is in the local community, like a plant, to teach certain things in fractions, in sequences and series, then the school doesn't have to buy anything. A simple game like Okwe can be taught on the ground, in the playground, and now you have bridged the gap between the haves and the have-nots. So this is also was also a project about balancing the curriculum for ethnicity, gender, and class. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Next, Abu Bakr.
Thank you.
Oh, there's another one. Why don't you come here?
Well, it is so good and so tough to be in Paul's chair. Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you, Deb, and everybody else that contributed to this program. It's a very wonderful program, and I get to say that as somebody who has been a fellow, but also somebody who has got a chance to hear a lot of people talk about why they want to be in this program. So my host, Fred Ogenga, at Rongo University College in Kenya, he was actually supposed to be here to present a paper in my panel, but unfortunately he couldn't make it, financial problems. But I really want to thank Fred and the people of Rongo a lot. I'm from Sierra Leone, and Kenya is also my African home. But being in Kenya and working with Fred and the staff here again reinforces the African brotherhood, sisterhood, and in many ways again, I guess one of the inspirations behind this program is we asked the question for those of you who have been here so long and have been kind of disconnected, how can I give back? And I think some are able, and you brought in that scope, so maybe I'm not able to do it in Sierra Leone, but I can do it in Kenya, so there's all those things there. So the way I heard about the program, for some reason I got an email, the first email that says, register on this web page here, and if you're interested, and we'll contact you later when the applications are open. I don't know whether my name is on too many emails or not, but possibly it may have been a forward from the African Peace Building Network from Nairobi. I'm not too sure, but anyway, a lot of things come from that side, which is good. And so usually, when I get information about anything that is good for Africa, what I do is that I send it to colleagues in Africa, and I edit the African Conflict and Peace Building Review Journal, and we have been publishing about 5 years with Indiana University Press, and we have actually built a good database of actually scholars in Africa, people who publish, submit, review, and so forth. And one of the missions of African Conflict and Peace Building Review is to really help promote the scholarship of people in Africa by giving them a platform where their work can stand out there like anybody else in the world. Not be in a journal that will never see the daylight of beyond Africa. And we are fortunate to actually have the resources of Indiana University to do that. So when I got the email, I actually sent it in a forward mass email to all the people on the ACPR kind of network. And some of the people replied again. Many of the junior scholars who submit in ACPR, I work with them, and again it's part of our mission, but I work with them through a series of revision, revise and resubmit, mentoring here and there, and to get their papers. One of them was Fred Ogenga. Fred is a very, it's a very interesting young man, high energy, and he embodies, the spirit, the hope of the new Africa. When you work with the young people, man, you'll enjoy it. so Fred, he's always full of ideas and energy. And Fred shoot back an email, "Hey Abu, what can we do? I'm interested in this." I guess he's interested in everything, but but he publishes paper on media, and he works on media and peace and conflict. So I said, well, I also work on peace and conflict, and he has actually been trying at Rongo University to develop a master's program on democracy, peace, and media. To get he's in the communications department, but he wanted to get a master's program. So we discussed it, and we said, well, look at the guidelines. Think if you can talk to your folks, your elders in the institution, and see if you can get a proposal. And he did. And so in that sense, he actually identified me as a potential collaborator. So that is that link here. So getting to Kenya, Rongo is a rural university. It's not a university in Nairobi. It's deep in the country. So for somebody, it was good going to Rongo. There's so many personal things to this studies, it feels so good. But I enjoy being in Rongo. Rongo just reminded me the small town that I grew up in Konoha, in Serbia. It was wonderful. It's not Nairobi. It was good, but the other thing too about learn about Rongo University College, again, for those of us who haven't worked in African universities or studied there for long, there were a lot of things we don't know. But so Rongo University College was part of this more big grand national development plan, wedded with politics to have a university in every place, and it is part of the Moi University in Kenya, which is like his own little enterprise. But the good thing is that they have developed this small but strong institution that has actually really learned how to work in the new kind of educational market in Kenya. And they develop really programs, they do things that are very similar to what we do here, in terms of how do you get courses that will sell to students, make impact, and they have that kind of thinking. So one of the things that they wanted to do was this, program on media peace and media democracy and peace, and they have identified, that they sit in a very interesting place. So it's Rongo is in the lower area of Kenya. They have there's this local level national kind of ethnic conflicts. Their politics which is like tense, but they have never had real conflicts. But then also, of course, they are just around Tanzania, Uganda, and so there's a lot. They saw the possibility really there of thinking in terms of a hub that connects local and regional kind of competitions. So when I went there, again, Fred is awesome. You know, and this is actually a good thing because collaboration really needs everybody doing something. And Fred has actually done some groundwork, and I think I appreciate that really because my role wasn't really just to go there and say, well, you know, hey Fred, here's what you should do. I mean, I developed a long list of things and had a lot of resources and put all these things together. And when there, I was armed, but you know, Fred was also very armed. Okay, yeah. So you know, so Fred, you know, brought these things, and I was there for just for 3 weeks, which was good, you know. So, but we went through the program, the ideas, and we thought of ways to improve on it. So I brought the things that I learned from the US. So we identify tracks, for example, and the other thing too, we identify places, people who you can market this program to. And one key thing that we noted was that, well, the Kenyan government is so interested in security. NGO people are so interested in security. We said, well, one of the people that you can market these things to really is security forces. You can actually tell the Kenyan government that, hey, bring your police officers here, bring your military people here. We can train them in a short, it's a master's program, so it's a short time. And they can learn to actually think of security beyond the weapons and so forth. So we identified some groups that can actually be natural targets for this kind of like short program. Journalists who actually want reporting on peace and conflict. Well, these are not other. We also worked on the development of a certificate for people who already have master's degrees in other areas. When they don't need another master's degree, but they can take a certificate. And apparently in Kenya too, they're like going to online education. It's I was surprised that they're actually getting big on it, but yeah, but they are. So we worked on components when they can the possibilities for online components to this. So that was the core of the program. And at the end, when I was leaving, we realized that we need to take a step forward, and that is to develop a Center for Media, Democracy, Peace, and Security. So right now, that is what we're working on, and I met the university leadership. The chancellor, the Guru, was very good and supportive. He said, I guess he said one thing which fits into the Carnegie Program's idea, which I like very much, and that is he recognized that right from the beginning, African institutions cannot just be going around and say, well, we don't have anything. Nobody listens to you or even take you serious when you say you don't have anything. He has expressed support, and I just got an email from Fred that the university has approved the proposal for the center. So we're looking forward to moving the next step to build some programs, activities, grant applications, and that will really be a way to attract potentially PhD students for the masters and PhD students for the degree program. Okay? So the center will somehow really reinforce and support the program. So I guess that is like the substance now. So I mean I can talk on this forever because it touched my heart. I mean it touched my heart. I mean working with Fred, young person, it really touched my heart a lot. So, but I guess what it's challenging. The infrastructure is always difficult. The bureaucracy is difficult. I mean, the hierarchy structures of rigid hierarchies. But you learn how to work with it. So one of the things that I guess I recall back from Seoul is that, well, sometimes we go there and they say, well, we can't meet today. The vice chancellor is not here today. Well, we'll say, okay, well, tomorrow. We have to do it tomorrow. So you learn again to work with these institutional things. Sometimes when other things doesn't work well, we say, well, why can't we just talk to the students? So we sit on the B3, we talk to the students, and they have amazing questions. So it builds again this motivation, sense of fulfillment given. But I think it's the partnership is very strong because it is about not one-sided kind of like here's what you should do, but for the collaborative way in which we build ideas from both sides. So it is a wonderful experience, and And I hope there can be ways in which you can develop sustainment, so not just like one-time thing, but to build on some of the things to really be more durable. Thank you very much.
The next presenter is Stella.
Good morning, all. I'm Stella Iwabu of Cleveland State University, the School of Health Sciences. I'm a nurse by primary training, but I'm also a public health educator. My PhD is in public health education. But my heart is and will always remain in nursing. I heard about the Carnegie program through a colleague because in 2008, there were a lot of instances of Nigerian nurses. In 2008, there were cases of Nigerian nurses here in America that were being killed by their husbands. It's an epidemic. If you go online and Google Nigerian nurses killed by their husbands, you will be shocked what comes out. And we felt like, as nurses, we need to organize and do something about it and start advocacy, find out what is going on. And that's part of the work that we're into. And in the process of doing this, we formed the National Association of Nigerian Nurses in North America. And that includes people in Canada and in the US. We don't have anybody from Mexico yet. And we started this dialogue amongst us, as well as with Nigerian institutions, to kind of look at the root causes of this issue. And part of our goal was to improve nursing education and service in Nigeria, and of course to promote the well-being and professional development of the nurses, Nigerian nurses that are here, and of course the Nigerian community. So it was Bukola Salami, Dr. Bukola Salami, who told me, actually didn't tell me, she got the email from introductory email for if you're interested in this, apply and then you get more information. So she's forwarded it in our listserv. So that's how all of us had about it. And we all had a meeting because we normally have a call-in meeting every second Sunday of the month. So we called in and talked about it and discussed strategies, how if you want to apply, how you could go about it, and institutions, because there are very few institutions who offer nursing education, nursing at the bachelor level in Nigeria. And we've already been actually trying to do something about that problem. The Nigerian government moved nursing from the diploma program, which is the associate degree, but they want all the nurses to now have a bachelor's degree. Yet there are only about 7 or 12 universities that offer nursing at the bachelor level. And those who have a diploma in nursing, they might work for 14, 15, 20 years in the ministry, and they get to a point where they can't move forward because they don't have a bachelor degree in nursing. So most of the diploma programs have been phased out, and a lot of programs are cropping up in the universities. But the problem is many of them cannot get accredited. Some that were already accredited lose their accreditation because they do not have enough faculty. So we already started discussing with the Nigerian University Commission. Actually, we're in the process of developing a memorandum and discussing with Nigerian university, individual departments of nursing or schools of nursing. We're thinking, how can we, as members of the association who are here, many of us are professors in universities who have the license, who have the qualification to teach, how can we help? So we started a dialogue of maybe 3 people could teach a course. So we can be in the faculty and 3 nurses could take 1 month leave and teach, and 3 nurses can teach a course. And we thought about, oh, what about online? I could be here teaching a course in Nigeria. So these are some of the things we're already discussing with the Nigerian University Commission. And they actually have a program called LEADS, linking diaspora academia with the Nigerian universities. But that's pretty limited, and I didn't even get to hear about it until after the Carnegie program. So when when Bukola sent this in, we all met to kind of identify universities in Nigeria that offer nursing. And those that, some of them suggested linkages. However, I also is an alumni, I'm an alumnus of Obafemi Awolowo University. That is where I had my nursing education. And I've been involved in seeing what the alumni can do to improve nursing education within the university. So we've been sending them things like mannequin, getting them journals, sending them books, getting engaged with them. How can we help? We're already talking about how we can, as a pool, review the curriculum of the program of the university, because they are now, the department is the one of 2 universities that offer PhDs in nursing. Only 2 universities in Nigeria offer PhDs in nursing. And the ones that offer bachelor's and master's are very limited, and they are not able to cope. So we're discussing how can we make this better. So I've been in this challenge, I've been involved in making this an issue, trying to find out how we can solve this problem. And then out of the blue, Carnegie Fellowship came. So part of the suggestion that I made to the department was about the online, that I would like to help. I would actually like to volunteer. I could mentor a graduate student. I could be an advisor. I could help read their thesis and dissertations and give them feedback and all that. That could be my way of giving back. So somewhere along the line, probably a year ago, they started they started planning for a long distance. They had a long distance part-time nursing program, and the demand was so high, and people traveled 8 hours to come for a weekend program. And Nigeria's road is a dead trap. I almost died on that road. I was paralyzed from a spinal cord injury following an accident when I went home to Nigeria to help. Because somehow I've always believed that we cannot afford to get comfortable here. The America we enjoy today, we are built by people who gave blood, who shed their blood and sweat. And my dream is that one day Nigeria, Africa, can have the same value, can have the same institutions that we enjoy here. And that's been my passion. Also as a human rights advocate, I've always pushed to see how we can build institutions. So when this happened, it's like the time it came together, you know. So I was supposed to volunteer for a shorter time from a long distance, but then the Carnegie Fellowship thing came. And that summer I was supposed to go home and see what I can do to help them plan because in the 5 years I've been teaching online for the first 5 years. I have been bored to death because I have no human connection. But somehow it seems like everything was built for this time, because I have acquired so much experience in developing and teaching online courses. So when we started conversation on what about making this online, it seemed impossible because the technology is not really available. And then how do you do nursing online? That was questions people were asking. But the conversation have moved forward, and they already started the design. So when I contacted my department, when I found the Carnegie Fellowship announcement, I sent it to my department and the list that we have. So they were excited, I was excited. So it's like it really came together. And so they said, like, you're coming home, you're gonna come help us build this online thing. Our faculty had no clue they didn't even believe that it is possible. They don't even believe that it can be done. So my role was to come in and be a change agent, to empower them, to show them that it can be done and that it needs to be done, and discuss the barriers and how do we overcome the barriers. So I taught them how to design online classes, taught them how to teach online classes. I worked with them to videotape their lectures. I videotaped a couple of lectures myself because the lady that was supposed to do those lectures was on leave. Well, to cut a long story short, it was a wonderful homecoming. I worked with the Center for Distance Learning and the Department of Nursing. So I had 2 offices. So I'm spending 2 or 3 days in each place. I had graduate students that I was mentoring, and one of the things that I did over there was establish the writing club. So we meet every Tuesday morning, and for 2 hours, all we're doing is writing. And they love the idea, and I've told them continue even when I'm not there. And I think they're doing that. Hopefully, we'll see some publication that will come out of that. And I did a lot of seminars. One of the seminars I did, apart from the one on online education, was titled Reawakening the Spirituality of the Nursing Profession. If you're from Nigeria and from Africa, a lot of nurses have such bad reputation because we do not do what we're supposed to do. We do not have the right attitude for our patients. And I did that session to kind of help nurses get back to the spiritual basis of our profession. And that was well attended. The Vice Chancellor sent representative. He was on the website, and it was really well received. They gave me all the support that I needed. They were really excited to have me. The students, they looked for me, and I engaged with them, and I had such a wonderful time. I had been very depressed for a while, and going home just woke me up. And I did not have a sad moment. My life was filled with sunshine and with people, the warmth of Africa, and the connection that you have with people. And they helped me. I thought my disability would be a challenge, but they were ready to carry my walker. They were ready to carry me, whatever it took. There's work to be done in that direction, and that's some of the things that I would like to be a part of. To cut a long story short, I've been burnt. I am not the same anymore. I'm going home. So I'm resigning my position at Cleveland State University as we speak, with effect from December 31st. And part of what I will be doing is helping to make that program, the online nursing education, a success. And I would like to actually, as soon as possible, start the master's program online, because we need to build the faculty that will populate these other programs. The demand is so high, yet the challenge are enormous. They have 2 textbooks for almost 11 faculty. And when I came I needed a textbook, and they gave me this tattered textbook that I could get infection from. And I said, what the heck is this? I started patching it up, and I said, why didn't you have Paul the publisher? And I said, who? What is that? I have no clue that you could get books from publisher. Over here, they practically throw it at you. But it took me almost 3 weeks to find the publisher in Nigeria to get a book. He said he cannot. He sent me 1 copy of the book. And I said, there are almost 12 faculty teaching this in this course, and we have over 500 students. The ratio of the teachers to the student is so much. They are so overwhelmed with work, and then they don't have the resources. Internet is almost non-existent. I have to run around and buy my personal routers, and I spend more money on internet than telephone than I spend on food. But it was a fulfilling time for me, and I see there's more that can be done, and hopefully I'll be calling on you guys to help me find resources for this program, because if we succeed in Nigeria, other African countries would always learn from what we're doing, and the program will be a success. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bukola.
Thank you, Stella. You already know my voice is...
I think for recording purposes.
Oh, that's it.
Wonderful.
To introduce myself, I'm Kola Oyini. I studied at the University of Ibadan. Good. I did my first degree and master's degree at the University of Ibadan. And for 7 years, I started a PhD in Ibadan, which truncated due to politics. I'll still talk more on it. That's why I raised it at the initial stages. So 7 years thrown away, I was frustrated and left for Netherlands. I completed my degree. But within that space, I started a career in academics at the Redeemers University in Ibadan, in Nigeria, along Lagos Ibadan Road. And it was my first job. And one amazing thing happened. A large number of professors who already applied and were given positions declined. So I started out first job as a head of department. And I was saddled with the responsibility of building a department where I had practically no experience, nothing of such. My only thing that deals with a bit of academics and administrative was to serve late Professor Ade Ajayi as research assistant for 4 years. So I had practically no experience. But my dean, Emeritus Professor Jide Oshuntoku, was there to ask me, go and write this, go and do this, go and do that, go and... So I was practically touring all universities in Nigeria, trying to see what they are doing in order to build a curriculum for history department, Redeemers University. It was at the point of approaching NUC, Nigerian University Commission, for resource verification that we had a quarrel. I had to do. So I never experienced that component of what I worked for. But I had this old dead computer that Professor Ade Ajayi gave to me, where I stored virtually all this document. It was a DOS, disk operating system. An old obsolete equipment. I have all my documents on it. I kept them. Not because of any other thing other than the fact that I didn't know where my leg would take me. So I was a student in the Netherlands, desirous of coming to Nigeria for my field work, when Joseph I. Babalola University, where I had applied and forgotten, called my wife and requested for my number. She gave them my mail, my phone number, and they called me. You applied some 4 years ago and wanted to start this university history department. Would you like to work with us? Starting another department again. So I came back home and I had to start another history department from the scratch. But this time around, I had the benefit of experience working with a professor who worked virtually almost everywhere, setting up history department. So it gave me some kind of hands-on experience. So that was my journey to Joseph I. Babalola University. So that answered the question, how the connection. But at Babalola, I faced another uphill task, which these two Nigerian, my fellow Nigerian, have talked about. This bureaucracy, all kinds of delays in doing things. So I had to cope with that. I learned through the road, and in an amazing way, because in the Netherlands, if you're familiar with the educational system in the Netherlands, students are listed as staff. I went to the Netherlands to defend my PhD, and I was there for like 6 months, only to come back to Nigeria and discover that I've been removed from this list of staff in my university. My salary was stopped, I was removed, and I was accused of working in 2 places. So I came back to ground zero. So I was there likely to clean my name when a professor came for sabbatical, Professor Sakio Zapata. Because he had traveled to Netherlands, he has seen much of the world, he knew what my problem was. And I asked the university to write to Netherlands to clarify whether I was working or not. When the message came that he was our student, he had his defense also date, he sent the video. It was a horrible experience for me. I was devastated. But in the midst of that, I started the department. I was building it up, falling back on my old notes to bring in new things. Then I introduced two key things. Courses that are quite different from what we found in virtually all Nigerian universities that I found useful in Netherlands. Culture and tourism as a standalone, and when I initially introduced it, we were thinking of having a department of tourism that will bring in culture and a variety of other things. Then again, because in Ibadan we have one young professor, I.O. Albert, who started conflict studies. I don't want to exaggerate, I think in the whole of Africa, he was a pioneer. He started and was doing fine. I thought we could do that. So I introduced it. And within a short span of time that I got to Babalola, we began to have a large number of people applying to study history, which was very strange. Because in almost all Nigerian universities, you have people who failed to be admitted to law programs, being pushed to either classical studies, philosophy, history. So history became some kind of a dumping ground for people who could not make it to the original courses. So you have frustrated elements, people are just marking time, let me have one degree and come back for another degree, maybe in law. That was the situation. I came with a new thing, that we can actually offer something new. Call it another name, history and international studies, history and international relations, history and diplomatic studies. Yeah. In order to ensure that we inject new things into the system. So this was received by this Professor Apata, who was one of the old professors. It came to me as shocking. The man could not even use a computer, and I'm telling him that these are new things I found in other parts of the world, and it worked. And he believed in me. Just write out the report, let me read it. If I find out that this works elsewhere, we can work on it. That was the kind of relationship we had. When this crisis of it was working in two places came in, and I suddenly lost my job. So it was in the midst of that I got a mail saying that I got a postdoctoral fellowship in South Africa. So I was happy, relieved, and eager to go. I cleared my name and I left. Forgetting the fact that I set in motion something new. We have to build a department which is started, we never completed it. I introduced new courses that are so alien to even Nigerian University Commission, and I had to be on ground to defend what I introduced. I was in Bloemfontein, the work stalled, new people came in who did not even believe in it. And Professor Apata kept constantly mailing me, asking me for my insight. That even while at Bloemfontein, I had to coordinate, send information back and forth, and things were running smoothly that way. But sometimes I had to call, defend the issues, even with younger colleagues, just simply because they didn't know about it, they don't believe in it. They cannot practically see anything that will make it work. So, barely a year at Bloemfontein, I got a job at Missouri State. I came down to Missouri State University, and my first 1 year was to learn a whole lot of new things. Using technology in ways that I've never used it before, new curriculum, learning how to deal with curriculum, knew how to revamp things. So I sat down and revamped virtually everything that I did, right from Redeemers University to Joseph I. Babalola University. It was in the midst of this, I got 3 different mails containing the same message in one day. USA African Dialogue sent me Carnegie advert. I ignored it because you receive so much that you don't even bother to read. African Studies Center in Leiden sent me the same thing. So because I graduated there, so I take that seriously. And ironically, ACPR sent me, and because Professor Cyril Obi was there, I have to read this. I don't know what is in it. And I find that it's this same 3 things. And the next thing I got was a call. Professor Apata, Bukola, I saw this and I think we should take interest in it. That could bring you back home. So I don't think my university will approve of that because I have so many things, learning this, learning that. Now I have to give back. So I approached my head of department. Kathleen, this is this. I told her the story of my life and why those projects were important to me. I have to complete something. I can't start A, plan 3A without finishing it. And Kathleen said, no, that will bring honor to university. What do you mean? Yeah, nobody has won anything from Carnegie in this university. Football contest. I was relieved. I just grabbed my pen and I was writing. I took it back. I don't know anything about Africa. You've been doing this thing. Do it your way. And when I got the mail congratulating me and that I've won it, Kathleen was the first to know. And before I knew what was happening, the dean was in my office, the director of program was in my office, almost everybody was congratulating me. Going to Nigeria. Going to Nigeria because it was, I left on a very bad note. The university didn't like it, I didn't like it. So it was like everybody was eager to meet me right from the airport. The professor was there to save for the fact that internet was a problem. I have to travel down to Akure. I didn't know she was in Futa. I would have pumped in and checking on her. I have to come to Futa to use internet almost all the time. So largely, it was a rewarding experience. Carnegie successfully brought me back to where I started and I was able to complete it. We went through resource verification. It was successful. We went through accreditation and it was so successful. Everybody received it so well and I'm kind of proud. Thank you, Carnegie, for at least making me successful.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Although on the program it says I'm Wycliffe Simiyu, I have two other names. I'm called Wycliffe Wekesa Njorai Simiyu. Those are the names I call. Don't ask me why so many, because that is for another day. I'll strictly confine myself to the script. But first I want to pay tribute to the collaborating organizations that got us to where we are now. The Carnegie Foundation, Kim and the university, and our coordinator for the program. I also want to appreciate the role that my co-collaborators in Uganda, Dr. Paul Pascal Soita, the Vice Chancellor, Head of Department, and the Dean, my host in University. So, basically, I'm going to run through what I was tasked to do, how I came to learn about this program. Like others have said, it was through email, and it came out of a conference. I'm originally from Kenya, although I ended up going to Uganda. So as I was coming from Sierra Leone going to Kenya, I was leaving going to Uganda. So we have an organization and we have annual conference meetings. So in 2013, I attended a conference in Greenbone State University. And one of the things that we talked about so much was networking. So when I got back home, one of the professors at the conference sent me a link. So that's how I got to know about it. And as soon as I knew about it, I enrolled myself in a database, because that was the first stage. Enroll yourself in a database of African-born scholars working in the US, which I did. And then subsequent to that, there was an advert about the potential for African-born scholars being financed to go and work in Africa for between a month and 90 days. Is it a month and 90 days? Thereabouts. So that too I applied for. And simultaneously, I also informed the institutions that I knew of in Africa that would be interested. So I sent an email to Chamboko University, I sent an email to Makerere University, I sent an email to University of Nairobi, Masinde Muliro University in Kenya, and my alma mater, Kenyatta University, where I graduated from. So, because all those institutions have degrees in my area of specialization, which is basically sports science. And so, out of all of them, apparently it is only Chamboko that eventually put in an application. And I think that's why I ended up going there. So I was matched with them, and basically my history with them is not somebody going to a place that I didn't know. Way back in 2003, 2001 actually, I worked a collaboration between Kenyatta University and Chambako University. They had just been upgraded to university status. They did not have personnel to teach their students. So we had an arrangement where their staff, their faculty would come to study at Kenyatta University department for their PhD. And actually we had one student, the one I worked with, who eventually at this time when I visited was actually the Dean of Graduate Studies. The second aspect was that the arrangement in the collaboration was that faculty from Kenyatta University will go over to Uganda to teach their graduate program, which was just starting a master's program. So out of that class that I taught in 2003 was one professor who eventually got his PhD and came to University of Western Virginia as a visiting scholar in 2013. And this professor we happened to meet at a conference in Charlotte in February of 2013. Then he goes back home. When this information goes in, because now he's been sensitized, I guess, in how to respond to matters urgently, he's the one who put in the request. And that's how I ended up there. So once I was marked, I engaged in active communication with them to know where they have reached over the years. They briefed me on where they are, and therefore that's how we build our relationship. One of the requirements that I asked of them was, whatever you do, wherever you take me, wherever you house me, please let there be access to internet. That was my basic requirement, so that I don't have to land in his problems. And in East Africa, they have this very innovative way of accessing the internet. They send money and receive money through telephone. And so they also have portable internet. You just buy a flash drive, it is loaded, you plug in your computer and you're good to go. So that's what I ended up using. For those of you who are interested in going, what are some of the basic things that you need to start working on? Looking at my background, you see the connections that I had with all these people. So when this opportunity came up, I was not a stranger. My name was not strange to them. So it was easy to pick up. So I encourage you to those who have come from Africa and you went through African institutions, don't forget them. Maintain your links with them. Communicate with them. Communicate and update them on what is going on in your lives. Remain in contact with your departments that are relevant to you. And something that is very important, and I think Abu, yeah, he is a good example. Be open to opportunities that may take you outside your comfort zone. You have to be open, because I think there are greater opportunities for your impact in Rongo than at University of Nairobi, maybe. But it depends also on your interest. If the other thing that is important is reach out to those institutions, both horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, your peers, but vertically also don't forget that you have friends that have also grown up the ladder. They may have become deans, they may have become deputy vice chancellors, they may have become actual vice chancellors. And some of those people will be excited for you to go back there and offer service. So let's not forget where we've come from and the people that we've interacted with. Avail as much information about yourself as possible so that you create familiarity. Be realistic about what you are able to deliver, because there is also this expectation that when you're coming from the West, you are the solution to all the problems. Please, it is not possible. It is not possible. You can only play a small part. So be realistic. Watch out for over-exaggerated expectations about reciprocal visits to your diaspora institutions. Because this one is taking you there, but it's not bringing them here. Maybe that's what I think think that's something that maybe we need to work out in future, so that it is also possible to bring people of influence who can come here, learn from the system, and go to improve the system over the other side. And having said that, I also want to acknowledge the fact that actually I knew him without ever knowing that I knew him. I just confirmed today that we came through the same river. The other thing that I want to point out is let's be humble in our expectations, especially what you expect to be offered on the ground. The reality on the ground could be a bit almost scary. I remember one time, I'm sorry for my host institution, but I need to be also transparent here. We go to an office on a Friday morning and there is no power. There's no power. And basically, in the modern era, when there's no power, basically there's no work. Only to learn there, let alone that one arm of government had switched off the power. So let's appreciate some of the limitations that you are going to have to negotiate and navigate. But the reality also is that some institutions are so desperate for highly qualified faculty because they are so much in short supply. The expansion rate is so much. And as she has said, as they have said, the expansion rate is going up. Like in Kenya, suddenly you move from 7 public universities to 22 universities in 1 year. Where do you get the people? So people are stretching themselves so thin. They call it moonlighting. And so those things are happening. So if you can lend a hand, I think that will greatly be appreciated. Be open to improvise how to go about it. You'll be assured there will be internet, there will be this, but when you reach on the ground, it may not work the way you are promised. So you must be prepared to navigate the system. You must be prepared to navigate the system. Be sensitive also to their needs and the situation. Be flexible given the disparity between what you have now and what you are going to have then within that time you are away. It is important that you are flexible in your appreciating of what you have and what they have. That will help you to be more effective in what you do. So basically those who are the key things that I just wanted to share. And while I was there, I just wanted to negotiate, to speak about the things that will facilitate you. Otherwise, what I did there was basically to work with the graduate students, to mentor them as I speak now. By the time I left, I had started conversations, interactions with 15 students. We had 4 PhD students who fortunately continue to go to Kenyatta University. But Kenyatta University demands that before they are registered, they also have already developed a proposal, at least a concept paper. So that is basically what I was working with them on, 4 students who were hoping to register at Kenyatta University for their PhD. 2 students also just submitted their final thesis, and I was a big part of that. And I've committed myself to continue to work on the work that I started. Because 2 months is too short a time to start and complete an academic endeavor. And therefore it is going to be an ongoing endeavor on my part to help the people that I interacted with within what my jurisdiction was, and those that are willing to come on board for me to continue to contribute to that institution's or that institution's growth. That is my commitment, because I stand on the shoulders of those who went ahead of me. And I remember one time, Professor Ishwani, I got a promotion, and then the leadership of the university changed. There came in a guy called Professor Ishwani, and he revised my promotion. So when I went and asked why am I not being given the letter of appointment in my new capacity, he said, in the university, young man, you either publish or you perish. And eventually when I negotiated and navigated the system and I got my PhD, he told me, remember, I told you that you either publish or perish. But now, my charge is different. You reproduce yourself at every opportunity. And that's what I seek to do, reproduce myself, whether it is with Chamboko or with Henry.
From the presentations, at least 5 things are very clear from all of them. One is that their experiences in this program were built on existing relationships and networks. So maximizing, cultivating existing relationships and networks is obviously a way in which we can all leverage our contributions, not only to our own professional development, but to the professional development as well as the institutional development on the continent. Secondly, it is quite evident that these experiences were transformative. Transformative on not only the scholars from here going there, some of whom perhaps hadn't been engaged with institutions there for some time, but also transformative, obviously, for the institutions there. And one of the most dramatic forms of transformation is what we just heard from her, that she's going back permanently. The third is that these relationships have led to the development of new programs, new initiatives, new activities in terms of curriculum development, and obviously I'm sure they've also led to new activities in terms of scholarly collaborations and things like that. We did hear, fourthly, a number of challenges. And these challenges include bureaucratic and administrative challenges, challenges of infrastructure, and the challenge of being realistic and, and developing the skills, the sensibility to navigate those challenges in terms of expectations, in terms of the need for humility, the need to be nimble in dealing with things that may not be what you expected. So the challenges are there, but the key is understanding those challenges and being able to negotiate them, to transcend them, and to make the best use of that opportunity. We also heard finally about the areas where the program itself could think of making improvements. And I just want to underscore 3 that I seem to have heard. There are probably, of course, more than that. One is that the issue of planning visits might be useful to think about, particularly in contexts in which one's familiarity with the institution or the context in which one is going to engage with might not be as robust as one would wish. So that whole question of what kinds of program or pre-fellowship connections, how can that be thought through? Secondly, the question of the colleagues that one is working with on the other end. What kinds of resources are afforded to them in order to maximize their engagement? And this is something obviously of interest to all of us because our colleagues sometimes on the other end are already overworked. And how do we make sure that their ability to work with colleagues on this end is facilitated in ways that are as productive as possible. The question of release time was mentioned as part of that issue. And that may be something to think about in terms of institutional support on the other end. What kind of institutional support are the institutions on that end providing their own faculty to maximize their engagement with colleagues from here? And then finally, the whole issue of to what extent can the question of reciprocal engagements, visits, be thought of as an important element of this program. Finally, I just want to underscore one thing which I think came loud and clear in the last presentation, and this is now as a segue to the session that we're going to be having this afternoon, and that is the African higher educational landscape is changing dramatically. One indicator of that change is the sheer exponential growth in the African universities. The numbers of universities And that exponential growth is not necessarily matched with resources. It's certainly not matched with capacity, faculty capacity. And this is an area that the African diaspora can play a major role, beyond obviously this program, can play a major role in providing and contributing to and facilitating the development of that capacity in terms of the faculty. So I just want to leave you with that thought, but I'm sure you're all dying to ask questions and make comments on the presentations. As I said, we have about half an hour.